In this episode, in the anatomy of a murder, we're going to finish off the crime scene and we're going to talk about every other witness involved. A lie is where you willfully mislead somebody knowing that what you're saying is factually incorrect.
I think I lie very well for my profession.
What does a liar look like? What does a psychopath look like?
I just want to say I hope there's a lot of criminals listening to this. We'll be picking up some good tips.
And hello, Bradford.
Hello, Steve. How are you, mate?
I'm good. We've got all these crime scene things happening. Have you been sleeping well? Thinking about all these murders that we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, sleeping like a baby, as in I've been crying and wetting my pants. Yeah, so sleeping like a baby.
Yeah, thanks for that information.
Right.
So just a couple of things, because we've got a lot of things to cover today. So just a couple.
We've got through this crime scene, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, and you can see the importance of really thoroughly examining a crime scene. But
yeah, sorry,
just
I do now.
Oh dear. Yeah. So what we have had a couple of inquiries. One is about Locard's theory of transfer.
Yeah.
I remember when I did detective training school, they really drummed this into us, and what that means is basically every contact leaves its trace. It's what I spoke about last week. So there would be evidence, if you left this studio now, there would be evidence that you've been here, such as, carpet fibres from the rug, the new rug in the studio, under your shoes. And
big pile of empty cans.
with your fingerprints and saliva and DNA on them. But also, and I think I mentioned hair, you don't have much hair, so there wouldn't be any hair strands or anything like that.
Blood.
But I do notice quite a long strand of hair on your T-shirt. Now, if we had to get that analysed, I know that's not you.
Wow!
Right? So this really proves Locard's theory. So somehow this hair, you may know who it belongs to, has found its way on your T-shirt, and that's Locard's theory of transfer in a nutshell. So you may not have known that was going to happen, but it did. So that now connects you to whoever that person belongs to, that hair belongs to.
What a wonderful example. Well, there you go. So that could be anything, I suppose. That I've always had this question: can you get, how criminals wear gloves?
Yep.
Do they have gloves have fingerprints inside them? Where your fingers go?
Well, it depends what the material of the glove. I remember I worked on one job where we did find a single latex glove, and the crook threw it away. We picked it up, and fingerprints turned it inside out and lifted a print, and we could trace it to the offender. So once again, depends on not a smart. Every now and again, you go to a crime scene and something like that happens. Like I remember, I went to a burglary, and we found the offender's wallet, which is what we call in the job a walk-up start.
Yeah, right.
So when you're exactly, I've always said good crooks never get caught, and some of the other crooks can't keep their mouth shut, and they have to brag and boast about it. So that's one inquiry.
You'd have to keep your mouth shut in prison when they say, how'd the cops get you? You go, well, I left my wallet there.
Well, yeah. It's, the what's that saying? The elevator doesn't go to the top floor or something.
Well, I went to school with a guy who robbed a building society and then in the city and then jumped on a tram. And so he got 300 metres up Elizabeth Street and the cops boarded the tram and arrested him. So,
maybe a tram's not the quickest mode of getaway transport.
A friend of mine went to visit him in Manchester. This is like 40 years ago, and said two things that came back out of it. One was he said in hindsight he wished he'd had his license, and two. They said, it must be horrible being in jail. He said, well, not really. At least I know what I'm going to do every day. And he was dead serious. So he was really kind of devoid of, he was always going to go there. Anyway, that's what happens when you go to good school.
And the second inquiry related to, we brought up, I think I mentioned the homicide triad, where there's been a great deal of research where the crimes escalate. So and there's a lot about this in so far as the study of psychopathy, where crimes will often escalate in their level of violence. So it could be something as simple as torturing animals and setting things on fire. And you usually find the attacks become more brazen and more aggressive. It's almost like for a psychopath conditioning behaviour where, of course, they do get some sort of thrill out of it. I remember spending some time with Marilyn O'Toole, who used to be in charge of the FBI profiling unit, and I remember her telling some stories, and I thought I'd seen everything that one human could do to another in my 14 years in the police.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Robert Hare, I think I mentioned Dr. Robert Hare, he wrote the psychopathy checklist, and this is where there are certain behaviours that blend into basically the anatomy of what a psychopath is.
So predominantly murderers, crime of passion, pardon me, people have just snapped.
Yeah, not all homicides are perpetuated by psychopaths. We know a lot of homicides are domestic related where the offender knows the victim. That's why serial killer investigations are very difficult to investigate because there's often no connection or nexus.
I wrote a sketch I was a writer for the Comedy Company back in the day, back in the 90s. I wrote a sketch and it's mainly shot off screen.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear some of these, and there's a lineup of 6 guys, the classic police lineup.
Yeah.
And you just hear, are you sure that's him? And you hear this kind of rattling sound. And finally, so number 4, that's the person who attacked you. And then the camera pulls back and it's a vending machine that's had the shit kicked out of it. Because people have a breaking point. And vending machines can be a breaking point. Anyway, I digress. Well, this is a serious podcast. Come on.
Okay,
right.
So that sort of wraps up some of the questions that we've got from our listeners. Now, just following up from the anatomy of a murder, we spent a fair bit of time, our last podcast, on the crime scene, the investigation of a crime scene, forensics, photographics, fingerprints, looking for biological trace evidence that could connect the offender to the scene and victim. And ballistics we spoke about. But now we've covered that. So the next phase is witnesses.
Right.
So what have we got on the witnesses who...
I'll just recap.
Yep.
Okay, so the victim, male, 27, dressed well but not flashy, expensive sneakers. This is the body, by the way. It's been discovered in a laneway. Dark jeans, black jacket, designer watch, no wallet visible, phone found nearby but damaged. He has a low-level public profile, not a major gangland figure, but someone with possible links to organised crime circles through debt collection, nightclub security, luxury car movement, or errand work. The scene, the body was found on the ground beside a roller door in the laneway. This laneway is in Collingwood, inner city Melbourne. There's apparent gunshot wounds, no firearm at the scene, a small amount of blood pooling under the torso, plus some blood spatter on the roller door and nearby wall. A few cartridge cases located nearby, but not in a neat cluster, and no obvious signs of prolonged struggle. Do you want the immediate impression?
Yeah.
At first glance, it looks like a targeted shooting rather than a random killing. Victim appears to have come to the lane for a reason, not obviously robbed. Shooting is close range enough to suggest intent.
Now, I'm just going to stop you there. What makes you think that at this stage, that it's a targeted shooting? How do you know it's not a robbery that went wrong?
Right. Well, yeah. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll talk about that.
All right. And the scene feels quick and purposeful. All right. So I guess, and I know this is something that you've pulled me up on so many times, and I guess that I'm assuming, because it looks like a deliberate scene, I'm assuming it's a deliberate thing, knowing full well that, having been schooled, knowing full well that it could be anything at this stage. All right.
So the next step would be looking for witnesses or
Right.
knocking on doors,
Okay.
speaking to people who may have seen or heard something.
Well, I have 10 witnesses.
All right, let's talk about those.
Okay. Let's start with, I guess this is number one. This is the person who found the body.
Always important.
Always important. The bakery delivery driver who found the body. Name is Aperen Bell, 41 years of age, male, obviously. First civilian on scene. And what he can say, he arrived about 6:12 a.m. Pretty precise, isn't it? For a regular rear lane delivery. Saw the body near the roller door. Initially thought the victim was drunk or unconscious. Got within a few metres, saw the blood, backed away and called emergency services. Said he did not touch the body. Notices a dark sedan near the mouth of the lane as he turned in, but cannot say whether it was connected.
It's always a good thing when somebody doesn't touch or disturb the crime scene.
Right. Yeah. Well, he's a baker.
Which can happen because sometimes paramedics will
yeah.
be working on the victim and they're required to.
Yeah, well, I know it might even be your inclination to check to see if somebody's alive, wouldn't it? You know?
That's the first thing you would be doing.
Yeah.
Because firstly, we would go to a scene, we need to establish has a crime been committed, but also the health of the victim. We can't make the assumption that the victim is dead until we check.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I would expect, I hope if I was lying in a laneway, which I may have done in the past, if I was lying in a laneway, somebody would just not assume that I was dead.
Yes,
actually,
because that could be catastrophic. You might not be dead then, but later on, if no one pays attention, you could be.
I get run over by the ambulance that could have saved me. Okay, so that's number one. Mm-hmm. So he's the person who found the body. Is there anything significant about the first person?
No. Well, yes, I should say. And that is they will be able to tell, or he will be able, Aaron, I think it is, will be able to tell us that what time, and I think you said 6:12 a.m.
Yep.
And of course, that gives us timeline of when, obviously other witnesses may have heard a kerfuffle or argument, yelling, the shots, which now gives us a time frame. Right. So from when the deceased was found to when gunshots were heard, we now know that the offender or offenders would have been present at that time. Right? So now we've got the timeline and time frame, which is very important.
I know. And look, I'll say it, even though it's dead logical, I would say that we know that at 6:12 the person was dead.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we're working back from that.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's how homicide investigations work. You start from where you are and you work backwards because you're trying to fill in time sequences, time events, conversations, associations, all that type of thing. So usually you're actually working backwards. I remember when I spent some time with LAPD Robbery Homicide Division. And
did you ever do any police work in Victoria? Were you seemed to be a lot of
I was just like a lot of federal politicians. I just love travelling. So and I still remember there was a detective there, and he had a cup and it had a body on it, and the slogan was "Our day starts when your day finishes." I have seen that. Okay, so that's our first witness. And who else we got?
The second one is the cafe manager receiving that morning delivery from the baker. Mm-hmm. This is Eleni Marinos, 33 years of age. Mm-hmm. Her role is the occupier of the nearby premises. So she's there, perhaps she lives on site. Mm-hmm. What she can say, she opened the rear entrance shortly after the driver arrived, heard him shout for her not to come closer.
Yep.
Says the lane is usually quiet by that hour except for deliveries. Mentions the rear security light has been playing up for a week. Says there is a camera above the back door, but she's not sure whether it records continuously or only motion.
Well, we'd be checking that out to see if there's any viable footage on that.
What I think is significant there is that she hasn't said she heard anything.
Yeah, may be the case.
Yeah, okay. But, just Only because
or she may have heard it and assumed it was a car backfiring and not paid any attention or notice to it.
So how do you go about not interrogating, but drawing that out of people?
Yeah, so you'd interview them. We'd want a free narrative. Tell me exactly what happened from the time you got there until what you discovered. So that neurologically, through sensory input, she would be recalling information. She would be recalling conversations, memories, feelings, spatial, all that type of thing, which is all important because the information she supplies and the camera, the CCTV, there would be a member who would actually be looking around, looking for other CCTV footage of that. It all comes to building a case.
Is this significant then that when you're interviewing a witness, right, and I suppose that, you have to have a neutral attitude to them and you want them to assist you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in all TV shows or whatever, they just seem to stop and ask people questions, sometimes standing within 3 feet of a gutted body or whatever.
Mm.
Do you do that, or do you find somewhere comfortable to speak to them? Or
Well, initially, if you're at the scene, the first thing you want to do is get them away from the scene, which could potentially destroy or contaminate evidence.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Because you don't see that.
Well, no, you don't because it's television.
Yeah.
And secondly, you would want a quick summary because many times I've been to like a serious stabbing or whatever, and
as opposed to those less serious ones.
Well, yeah, life-threatening, I should say. And we would want to know basically a summary of what happened because we're trying to put a picture together.
Mm-hmm.
This is the initial conversation or talk that we have with victims. So, with witnesses. So they're going to put us, and of course sometimes you've got to look at bias of witnesses too. I mean that's another issue. But basically they're going to inform us what's happened, and that helps us put together a summary, and then that leads us to an investigative focal point.
Right. So you would get them away from the scene,
yep.
And
separate them.
Get a
Do you
summary.
know why we'd separate them?
Sorry?
Do you know why we would separate?
You've said in the past so that they don't corroborate each other.
Well, one of the things we do want is cooperation by witnesses, but no, so they don't contaminate each other's. You don't have one person say it was a blue Commodore. No, it was a red Commodore. No, it was a green Honda. So you don't want their evidence contaminated because sometimes we don't always have all the facts. And this is one of the frailties of human memory, that we try to make sense of the facts, especially in periods of trauma or shock.
I think that's perfectly illustrated in that that's what I meant to say, but I said corroborated instead of contaminated. So
well, but they both start with C, but yeah.
And they have a no. Okay. So you get a summary, and I suppose, and at this stage, are you trying to work out if these people are telling you the truth?
Well, initially no, because we're just trying to get a summary of what's happened. Right. The next phase would be obtaining statements from the witnesses as to everything they saw, did, heard, felt, all that type of thing. And of course, sometimes you've got to be careful because your witness may be a potential suspect.
Yeah,
and it's not uncommon in some cases, fires in particular, arsons, where the arsonist will go back to the scene, and it maybe even be a member of the CFA or Country Fire Authority or something like that. So it's a good practice to get all the names, details, phone numbers, addresses of everyone that is present, because you might not always be able to talk to them at the scene for whatever reason because they're going to work or whatever. So that's where you have uniform members getting names of everyone in the locality.
Can you just do that? Can you just say, look, I'd love to tell you, but I've got all these sandwiches to make. Can you refuse to be interviewed?
Yeah. I mean, police can't compel you to talk if you don't want to talk.
All right.
In my experience, I haven't found that. I've found that witnesses usually are quite cooperative and want to help.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so look, I'll get your opinion on this because bear in mind that this is this whole scenario was a collaboration between myself and a form of AI. And witness number 3 and witness number 4, the bartender from the last venue the victim attended.
Now, this is very important.
And number 4 is the nightclub security guard from earlier in the evening. But number 5 is the apartment resident above the lane. So I feel like we've got out of order there that, wouldn't you just be still initially be in situ because you haven't even had a chance to find out where he was earlier. We're not even sure who he is yet. So how would you know the nightclub security guard and the bartender?
I would assume that either uniform or detectives would have been asking questions. Now, this is not my scenario, this is yours, but I would assume that questions have been asked and it's in close proximity. Now, the person who saw the victim leave, I mean, there could have been some sort of altercation. We don't know yet whether or not the offender may have been injured at a primary crime scene, and then there's a secondary crime scene where
somebody followed him.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, all right. So we'll go with number 3. The bartender from the last venue the victim attended. His name is Samir Haddad, 29, last known hospitality contact. What he can say, he recognises the victim as a regular but not a close friend. Says the victim arrived around 10:45 p.m, seemed tense, checked his phone repeatedly, met briefly with 2 men outside.
Now this becomes important.
Then came back in alone, left after receiving a call or message around 11:50 p.m, had not seemed heavily intoxicated.
Sorry, did or didn't?
Wasn't intoxicated. No.
All right. Let me tell you why that's important because was there any ID? I can't remember. Was there ID at the crime scene?
Yeah, there was. They couldn't find his wallet.
Okay, so therefore, safe to assume there was no ID on his person. Sounds like.
But they seem to know who he is.
Well, that's probably because of the witness who knew him from the nightclub. See, we have to establish who the victim is, obviously. So that's why it's so important that the worker at the bar or the nightclub will be able to identify who it is because, at this stage we just have a victim. We need to know who the victim is. So that's very important for the purpose of continuity.
Well, I feel what we have here is we have conflicting timelines really because
which happens?
We now know. We must now know who he is if we can find out, where he came from. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, this is the same location, the nightclub security guard from earlier in the evening. His name's Dean Kotsis, 38, knows victim by face and reputation. What he can say is he knows the victim as someone who does bits and pieces around venues. Bits and pieces.
What does that mean?
No. Well, he says he was sometimes around door staff, debt collection, car movement or private security jobs.
Okay, now we may have potential reasons for motive.
Right. Okay. Victim came by that night but did not stay long, seemed distracted and asked whether a certain man had been seen in the area. Guard is reluctant and streetwise, and this is the witness, and he gives only partial answers at first.
So interesting. Why is that? What is he covering? What is he hiding?
Yeah.
Does he know? Obviously knows more than what he wants to tell. So this becomes a potential red flag that requires further investigation.
Okay. All right. So we got a red flag there.
I've got several red flags, but that is one of them.
So we didn't get one out of the bartender.
So one would think if he's a little bit cautious, he may know more than what he's disclosing.
Yeah.
He might be protecting.
And so what do you do then? Do you lean on him? What do you do?
You watch too much television. What we would do is we would separate him and ask him in his own words what happened. we'd be taking a lot of notes of what he said for two reasons, either to corroborate, you've always got to question what a person's motive is, whatever it may be. In this case, from what you've just said, it looks like he may be in possession of further knowledge that can be imperative to the investigation. So, to answer your question, we take him aside, ask him if it give us a statement, like a formal type statement, which you always want on the file, of course. And then if we have to backtrack and come back and ask further questions, which does happen a lot. I know there's a bit of controversy in some of the cases here in Victoria about taking further statements down the track, but that's not unusual.
Right. Okay. All right. Witness number 5. We've got another 5 to 6 to get through. The apartment resident above the lane, name Priya 26, heard but did not see. What she can say is was awake around 12:15 to 12:30 a.m., heard what she thought were 3 or 4 loud bangs.
Okay.
Initially assumed...
How many cartridges have we got at the scene?
I think...
Does that corroborate that?
There was a number of cartridges lying there next to each other. Hang on. Where is it?
Well, you can see why that would be potentially important if there's, say, 4 cartridges and 4 shots were heard.
Yeah.
Then that would corroborate. And if, say, for example, there's 2 cartridge shells missing, then that could be important because they could have been picked up and taken either by the offender or...
Yeah. It says... a few cartridge, a few.
Yeah, so non-specific.
Located nearby, but not in an E cluster.
All right, so she said she heard, was it 3 or 4?
3 or 4.
Okay.
And you as professionals, you wouldn't be going a few. You would know exactly how many cartridges.
Well, if we didn't have the casings, the autopsy would be able to distinguish that, I guess.
Okay, so assumed it was bins, fireworks, or a car issue.
That's not uncommon.
About a minute later, heard a vehicle accelerate away, did not go to the window until later, and then saw nothing unusual from her angle. Okay. The rideshare driver who dropped the victim nearby, named Imran Sheikh, 47, transport witness. What he can say, he picked up the victim from a venue in Carlton around 11:58 p.m, dropped him near the main road entrance. Victim asked to be dropped slightly short of the actual destination.
That's interesting. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Not wanting the driver to know where he was going, or going to another locality to meet someone, maybe a prearranged meeting,
or to check out whether or not somebody's waiting there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're thinking.
And during the trip, the victim took a call and said something like, "I'm here in 10, don't make this a thing."
So that was the conversation that the Uber driver heard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't make this a thing.
Right, so now that tells me it's a prearranged meeting.
Right. Victim seemed agitated but sober.
Okay.
Okay. Who have we got now? We've got the ex-girlfriend or recent intimate partner.
Okay.
Her name's Chloe Vass, emotional and personal. Chloe?
Mm-hmm.
Emotional and personal victimology witness. What's that mean? Victimology witness.
Basically, it's a bit of a profile of the person, because we want to know as much. A lot of the times, people think we're in pursuit, which we are, of the offender, but we also want to know as much as we can about the victim. Because it comes down to associates and potential motive.
Right. Well, what she can say is that they split up. Her and the victim split up a few weeks earlier. Okay,
so now at this stage, we can't rule her out. I mean, it wouldn't be the first. I mean, I'm not saying we don't know, but this is a theory that could potentially be followed, and that is, what was the relationship like? Was it rocky? Was there violence? Has she organised for somebody to inflict some sort of injury on her ex for whatever reason?
Yeah.
So we can't rule her out either.
Okay. Well, and She said he was trying to get out of something recently or square something, hadn't been sleeping properly, doesn't know the specifics.
So something on his mind?
And she says he recently stopped carrying his usual wallet and started using just cash and one card. I don't know what that's about.
Okay.
Remember
Interesting.
there's no wallet found?
Maybe didn't want someone to know who he was, but yeah, there could be another reason there. I'm not sure about that.
Lost his wallet. The victim's younger brother.
Yep.
3 more to go. Lewis Moretti, a family witness. What he can say, victim had recently come into unexplained money, then lost it quickly, had been arguing with an older associate called Mick or Mickey. Family believed he was working security but suspected more than that. Says victim borrowed a car last week and returned it with damage but would not explain. And brother may be defensive and ashamed but wants to help.
Okay, maybe potentially drugs.
Okay. It's interesting that...
Or because didn't you mention before he was doing some debt collection work?
Yeah.
Okay.
And damage to the car. So, I don't know.
That in itself may not even be a connection. Maybe just something happened, an accident, whatever, but may not be connected to this particular crime.
Okay. Number 9, 2 to go. The mechanic, car yard operator connected to the victim. Name, Vince Arrogario. Semi-legitimate business associate. Semi-legitimate.
What's he do?
He's a car yard operator. Victim occasionally helped move vehicles or collect payments. Insists it's all above board. Admits the victim had missed a meeting recently and made people look stupid. Downplays any organised crime links.
Do we know what he made him look stupid about?
No. So that's a red flag, yeah.
Well, further inquiry, that's for sure.
May know far more than he says, can identify the victim's recent associates and perhaps the kind of vehicle they used. Okay. The final witness, and we are running out of time, the building cleaner, waste contractor who worked the lane overnight. Name is Rosa Jimenez, 58. I've just got to say ChatGPT seems to be almost quite racist here. Rosa Jimenez, routine user of the lane, whatever that means. What she can say, was in the area around 11:15 p.m. The lane was then empty except for bins and one parked scooter. Notice a silver hatchback that is often illegally parked there was not there that night. Remembers the side gate to the apartment was ajar, which she found unusual, and did not witness the shooting, but gives a useful before snapshot. Okay, so we've got our parameters really, and we do. Yeah, we pretty much know the time frame that it happened in. If the 3 or 4 bangs heard were accurate, and then he just lay there for 4 or 5 hours.
Correct.
Until
he was discovered at 6:12
by the baker.
So now this just goes to show you how involved a homicide investigation can be. So we have now spoken about the crime scene, initial action at the crime scene. We've now spoken about witnesses. Now the next part would be to take statements from all the witnesses. And by then we would have autopsy results, because usually they don't take too long. Toxicology to determine, whether there's any drugs, poisons, or anything in the person's system, and establish the cause of death. And now we would be looking at an investigative methodology, which we'll cover in the next podcast.
Excellent. All right, then. Well, just one very quick question: how quick does toxicology come back? That can't be that quick.
Well, no, you usually have to wait a little while.
Yeah, but an autopsy can be very quick. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Once again, it depends. Sometimes they can request to rush something quickly through. Right. But the most important part is to get the blood for toxicology testing. That's the most important part.
So the final thing I'll ask is, who at the scene has now designated this as a crime?
If it's handed over by the initial detectives, it would be technically a homicide investigation now.
Right. And then does that get reported?
And the reason, unless you had an offender there and then caught at the scene, in which case you'd probably find the homicide squad would take it over because that's their criteria for call-out.
Okay. And does that go up the line? Does the homicide squad then report to somebody and then, all the way up to the commissioner or...
No, so what happens is the officer in charge of the homicide squad would be over it, and basically, just to give you a bit of a snapshot, homicide squad depends once again on the size of the police department here in Victoria. I'm not too sure how many crews there are at the moment. It could be 6 to 8 crews, usually consisting of a senior sergeant, and about 4 detectives thereabouts. Once again, depends on manpower shortages and whatnot. And that would be oversighted by the head of the crew, the boss in the crew, in close connection with the boss of the homicide squad.
Okay, then. All right. Well, I think we've reached the end of the line for this episode.
So the next episode, we'll start talking about theories and look at potential suspects.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Steve.
Look forward to the next one.
See you next week.
See you, Bradford.
Have a good week.
Bye.
I just want to say I hope there's a lot of criminals listening to this. You'll be picking up some good tips.